July in St. Petersburg. The heat is a physical thing, a wet wool blanket pressed over the mouth of the city. The Neva River stinks. The streets are a slurry of horse manure and rotting cabbage. And in a tiny room, a room so small you could touch both walls with your elbows, a young man is lying on his sofa. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. His landlady has stopped bringing him tea. He owes her money. And he is thinking about a pawnbroker. An old woman. Her name is Alyona Ivanovna. And he has an axe. I remember reading the first scene in a borrowed paperback, the spine cracked, the pages brown. I was in my own tiny room, 100 years later, 1,000 miles away. And I felt it. The claustrophobia. The way a room can become a prison before you've committed a crime. Dostoevsky doesn't tell you what Raskolnikov is planning. He just shows you the room. The yellow wallpaper peeling. The dust. The low ceiling pressing down. You smell the sweat. You hear the floorboards creak. You feel the weight of that axe before it's even lifted. That's the genius of it. He makes you an accomplice before you've read a single page of murder. The murder itself is ugly. It's not a cinematic set piece. It's clumsy. The axe handle is too long. The old woman's head is bare, her hair thin. He hits her twice, and the blood is warm and gummy. His hands are shaking. He fumbles with the keys. He finds the money, the pawned items, but he doesn't take much. He's not a professional thief. He's a man who thought he could cross a line and remain the same. And then the door opens. Lizaveta, the old woman's half-sister, a simple, gentle woman. She sees the blood. Her mouth opens. He has to kill her too. With the same axe. And that's the moment the book breaks. Because Lizaveta did nothing. She was innocent. And Raskolnikov knows, in that wet, hot second, that his theory was a lie. Let me tell you about the theory, because it's the part that haunts me. Raskolnikov has written an article. He calls it On Crime. He argues that there are ordinary men, who must obey the law, and extraordinary men, who have the right to commit crimes. Not a legal right. A moral right. A right born of genius. Napoleon, he says, didn't ask for permission. He stepped over blood to get to history. And Raskolnikov wants to be Napoleon. He wants to prove that he is extraordinary. So he murders an old woman he calls a louse, a parasite. He tells himself it's a test. A philosophical experiment. If he can kill her and feel nothing, he is one of the great ones. But he can't feel nothing. That's the trap. The murder doesn't free him. It isolates him. For the next 200 pages, he is a man trapped inside his own skull. The fever comes. The paranoia. He hides the stolen goods under a rock. He can't lift his head. He walks the streets of Petersburg, and the city feels like a fever dream. The heat, the crowds, the shouting. And then there is Porfiry Petrovich, the investigator. He doesn't arrest Raskolnikov. He plays with him. He invites him to his office. He smiles. He asks gentle questions. What if, Porfiry says, what if the murderer was a young man of progressive ideas? He knows. Raskolnikov knows he knows. But Porfiry doesn't have the evidence. So he waits. And Raskolnikov sweats. And you, the reader, you sweat with him. Because you want him to confess. You want the pressure to stop. But he can't. He's too proud. He's too terrified. This is where Dostoevsky's own shadow falls across the page. In 1849, he was 27 years old. He was arrested for reading a banned letter. He was part of a socialist discussion group. The Tsar, Nicholas I, wanted to make an example. Dostoevsky was sentenced to death. He was taken to Semyonovsky Square. It was a cold December morning. He stood in a white shroud. He heard the drums. He saw the firing squad. He was given a last kiss. He was told to say goodbye. And then, at the very last second, a messenger rode up. The Tsar's pardon. The execution was a mock. A theatrical cruelty. Dostoevsky later wrote that those minutes on the square, staring death in the face, changed everything. He spent the next 4 years in a Siberian prison camp. Shackles. Frozen ground. Men who had killed, who had stolen, who had lost all hope. He lived among them. He learned that an idea can be a fever. He learned that a man can convince himself of anything. He learned that the line between extraordinary and monster is not a line at all. It's a mirror. So when you read Crime and Punishment, you are not reading a detective story. You are reading a man who was marched to the gallows, then pardoned, then buried alive in a prison camp, then forced to ask himself, what if the man who commits the crime is the same as the man who judges it? Dostoevsky knew Raskolnikov's arrogance. He knew his self-deception. Because he had felt it in himself. He had written letters from the camp, describing the lice, the rotten bread, the sound of chains dragging on stone. That sound is in every page of this book. The chains are invisible, but you hear them. And then there is Sonia. Sonia Marmeladova. She is a prostitute. She is 18 years old. She sells her body to feed her family, a drunk father, a consumptive stepmother, 3 starving children. She lives in a room with green wallpaper, which in Petersburg means cheap, and there is a lamp that burns all night. When Raskolnikov first visits her, he is not kind. He is cruel. He wants to see if she is as broken as he is. He asks her about God. About suffering. She has a Bible. It's the New Testament, in Russian translation. She reads him the story of Lazarus. The man who was dead for 4 days, and then Jesus called him out of the tomb. Raskolnikov watches her read. Her voice trembles. She believes it. She believes in resurrection. And he thinks she is a fool. But he keeps coming back. Because she is the only person who does not run from him. She sees the blood on his hands. She knows. She doesn't turn away. She says, go to the crossroads. Bow down. Kiss the earth. Say to everyone, aloud, I have killed. And he cannot do it. Not yet. The confession, when it comes, is not dramatic. It is pathetic. Raskolnikov walks to the Haymarket Square. It's raining. The mud is thick. He kneels. He presses his forehead to the wet ground. He kisses the dirt. People laugh at him. Drunkards point. A woman thinks he's a pilgrim. He tries to say the words. I have killed. But they won't come. His throat closes. He stands up, walks away. He goes to the police station. He confesses to Ilya Petrovich, a minor official. And even then, it's a mess. He mumbles. He stutters. He says, it was I who killed the old woman and her sister. And then he is silent. There is no relief. There is no catharsis. Just a door closing. Just the sound of a cell door. This is what the book actually asks you. Not is murder wrong? That's too simple. It asks you, do you believe you are above the law? Not the state's law. The moral law. The one that says you cannot take a life for an idea because Raskolnikov's logic makes sense. It really does. If you look at history, the great men, the Caesars, the Napoleons, they did step over bodies. They did break the old rules to make new ones. So why can't a poor student in Petersburg, a man of intelligence, a man of vision, do the same? Why should he suffer for the sake of a louse? Dostoevsky doesn't give you a neat answer. He gives you Raskolnikov, in a prison camp in Siberia, after 7 years of hard labor. Sonia is there. She follows him. She visits him. He is sick. He is broken. He does not repent. Not yet. He still believes, in his heart, that he was right. That the only mistake was his weakness. That he was not strong enough to be Napoleon. And that is the haunting thing. The book ends with a promise of resurrection. But that is the beginning of a new story, the story of the gradual renewal of a man, the story of his gradual regeneration. But we don't get that story. The book stops. It leaves you on the threshold. And you are forced to ask, would you confess? Would you kneel? Or would you keep the secret, and let the fever burn you alive? I have read this book 4 times. Each time, I think I understand Raskolnikov less. The first time, I hated him. The second, I pitied him. The third, I recognized something in his face. A voice that whispers, you are different. You are special. The rules don't apply. And that's the most terrifying thing Dostoevsky ever wrote. Not the murder. The voice. The one that tells you that you are allowed to be cruel for a good reason. That you can break a human being for a beautiful idea. That you can hold the axe and call it justice. The question the book leaves you with, the one that follows you out of the room, is not is there a God, or is suffering redemptive? It's simpler. It's colder. It's this, when you hear that voice, the one that says you are extraordinary, will you listen to it? And if you do, will you be able to live with what you find on the other side of the door?